Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. This one's another impromptu one, not with a ton of buildup, but there's been a couple headlines recently, a couple things we can break down. Hello, Sean, jumping in the chat. I'm doing good, Sean. How about yourself? Hope you're doing well through all the craziness in the world right now. Hope everyone's doing well. So the way this live chat works, as always, I always start it off the same, just in case we have anybody new jumping in the stream. Drop your questions over to the side. There's a couple big topics we can talk about. First of all, Animal Crossing New Horizons is out here just shattering records, even doing over, I think, what most people's optimistic expectations were. We can talk about that, what it means for Switch, what it means for the Animal Crossing franchise. There's some crazy numbers going up. So we can talk about that. Epic just announced a brand new publishing program with a whole bunch of pretty amazing details in there, a whole bunch of really good deals for developers. So we can go into that, thoughts on the publishing deal. The big get there is going to be Remedy Entertainment. Obviously, the other studios they've announced are very cool as well, but I feel like Remedy is really the one that caught a lot of people's eyes. So we can go into that. We can go into Switch sales. We can go into really anything you want. Just start dropping those questions over onto the side, and we will get to them. Thanks, everyone, for jumping into another chat. I know right now times are a little crazy, so I definitely appreciate everyone being here. Hope we can have a good time and maybe get some positive vibes, some positive energy going. All right, let's take a look. Let's see what questions we got going on. Wound Up Penguin saying, "What's up, Benji?" Not much. What is up, Wound Up? Alex Bailey, what's up? Hello, good to see you, Alex. Danger Man here looks like is starting off with the first question. One subject, could we see some games being delayed? Like the rumored Treyarch Rush Call of Duty gets pushed into 2021, Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer gets ported into 2019 to compensate. So basically a question about game sales. This is something I get a lot, really often, sometimes on Twitter, sometimes here in the live chat, and that's because the world is crazy right now. So Danger Man, my stance on that, kind of my thoughts, what I'm looking at is I am expecting some games to be delayed. What games those will be, I have no idea. I don't know if it's going to be like a widespread thing where you're going to see a lot of games delayed, but my hunch, complete guess here is that, you probably will see, a game or two get a delay. I don't think they're going to be huge delays. I think if anything gets delayed, they're going to be short, maybe, a couple weeks pushed back, something like that. But I'm not expecting like massive delays, like 6 months or something like that. So, because a lot of development is being moved to not being done in an actual studio, doing remote. But that works pretty well in the gaming industry. It's one of the few industries where, you can really still create content even from home. So Danger Man, expect, I think, maybe a few delays, but nothing too crazy. Sean Torres. One thing that escaped the news this week from Japan is that the Switch outsold the Wii's lifetime sales in Japan. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? So I didn't see that garner a whole bunch of headlines. I agree with you there, Sean. I did not see that pop up really much of anywhere. Pretty incredible that the Switch has already done that. It's only been, basically 3 years, and it's already outsold the Wii lifetime. Now, the Wii in Japan wasn't quite the crazy blow up success it was in the West, like in the US. But it still did decently in Japan, but it just shows you how strong Switch is. Switch is just doing incredible. Globally, it's insane. So to piggyback here off what Sean's saying, this past week in Japan actually was the highest for Switch sales ever, even higher than launch. Animal Crossing was that strong. Switch did almost 400,000 units in 1 week in Japan. That is staggering. Switch is on absolute fire right now, Sean. And that's pretty incredible. It's already higher than the lifetime sales of the Wii, and there's still a lot in the tank for the Switch. So it's going to go way past that. So pretty amazing stuff there from Nintendo. Danger Man. Rumors, though, but I think it'd be interesting to discuss. I think that Klee game fan rumored game will be pushed into 2022. Yeah, I don't know myself, particularly any games that have been rumored to be delayed. I suspect you might see, like I said, one or two, maybe a couple game delays. I don't think it's going to be super bad, though. Not as bad as like what you see with movies, because movies involve so much. Because anyone that's been paying attention, tons of movies, tons of TV shows are getting massive delays. And that's because, you have to have a bunch of people on a studio set filming. You have to have so much people interaction, large crews, camera crews, actors, directors, stunt people. It's a huge setup. With gaming, one of the nice things about it for an entertainment industry is, like I said, so much can be done remote. So you might see some delays, Danger Man, but I don't think it's going to be crazy. Alex, what are your predictions for global install updates? Ooh, interesting. Software and hardware after this fiscal for Nintendo. If you can predict at this point, it's actually kind of tough because things are a little crazy right now, Alex. So there's a couple things that make it hard. First of all, the effect of Switch shortages. In the US right now, shortages on standard Switch model, the neon and the gray regular Switch, are dire. They are, we're talking complete sellouts in huge areas of the country at multiple retailers. So it's a bit hard to guess, Alex, because it's just a question of how hard are those shortages going to affect, where it can go up to. I think it could be selling even more than it is right now. So in the US, March is going to be really strong for Switch. It's going to have a huge March. It's going to have actually an amazing March. But at the end of the month, right around when Animal Crossing came out, which is actually straight on point with that Bloomberg article that was a while back. I think it was Bloomberg. I hope I'm crediting the right people. That Switch was going to hit shortages end of March, early April. That ended up being spot on. Shortages right now in the US are very severe for the standard. Lite still has a good amount of stock. That is also starting to sell through. One of the things I tweeted just the other day was that the hero of March NPD in a way is going to be Switch Lite, because Switch Lite really came through and saved the day. If it wasn't for there being a strong stock of Switch Lite on store shelves, Switch would have been really hurt by those shortages that happened to the neon and the gray model. So Lite is really going to be the unsung hero for March for Switch. So Alex, in terms of hardware specifically, it's going to be tough. Japan also had shortages for a while, but they seem to be maybe bouncing back a little bit. So hardware, it's kind of a total out there. I'm not sure, Alex. I'm not going to give you a hardcore prediction on that because I really don't know where it's going to fall. In terms of software updates, we can make a couple. Pokemon, last we heard, was over 16 million shipped. I suspect you're going to see a decent sized shipment after that. But if you remember, sell through of that 16 million wasn't super, super high. It was high, but it wasn't like they shipped 16 and they sold through 15.5 million in the same quarter. So they had to flood a ton of copies out. So I don't suspect you're going to see enormous shipments for Pokemon in this quarter, but probably pretty good. It might get another. It's not a holiday month, holiday period, but you might see another 3-4 million. It could possibly get up to 20 million shipped after this quarter. I would suspect it probably is going to be around there, and maybe even higher, but probably in that range. For Animal Crossing, one of the ones people have been asking is, can it do 10 million in its first quarter, which is only like a week and a half or 2 weeks of tracking. Before I thought it was a long shot. Now I don't know. So for those that haven't looked at the actual numbers, let's go into that really quick. The Animal Crossing crazy record-shattering numbers. So in Japan, physical sales, just physical alone, launch week for Animal Crossing New Horizons was 1.8 million. It's almost 1.9 million copies. Physical alone. That's not counting digital. And for anyone that was paying attention to eCharts on the eShop, it has been number one on the eShop in Japan for weeks now. It's been a long time that's been sitting at number one. So pre-orders were through the roof, even digitally. So, there's all kinds of estimates floating around. I saw Daniel put up 2.5 million plus with digital as an estimate. It's huge. Japan sales are record shattering. They are the biggest for any Switch game ever. In fact, it kind of dwarfed Pokemon, which surprised me. I'm not necessarily shocked it beat Pokemon, but it beat Pokemon physical by like 500,000 copies, if I remember right. Because I think Pokemon was 1.3, if I'm remembering right. So, I mean, 500,000 physical above Pokemon, that is crazy. So yeah, it completely shattered Japan records. In the UK, it was the biggest launch physically ever for the Switch for a single SKU. So it was still behind Sword and Shield combined in the UK. But if you just look at one SKU, right, Animal Crossing was higher than Sword by itself or Shield by itself. And if you've combined them, it was the second largest ever in physical sales, right behind Pokemon. So crazy. Even in the UK, it is an insane performance. Everything I'm seeing in the US is insane. I think it's probably tracking with digital bigger than Pokemon even in the US. Yes, I think it is. So 10 million is not as out of the question as it might have looked at one point in time. I can tell you that. I think it's going to be very close. If it doesn't hit 10 million in those 2 weeks, I think it's going to be really close. I think it might do it. Now, that might sound like, hey, Benji, you're saying it's outpacing Pokemon, and Pokemon did 16 million in its first quarter. Why wouldn't you think it's going to be up closer to that? It's really just the amount of time. It only has a week and a half to 2 weeks to ship. But I don't think 10 million is crazy now. I don't think it's crazy. It very well could happen. And besides that, Pokemon and Animal Crossing are really the only really recent releases to make software predictions on for the fiscal year update. There hasn't been a whole lot else released recently for Switch. So I'm sure you're going to see still some legs from stuff like Zelda and Mario Kart. So you're still going to see some additions to that. But really, I think Pokemon and Animal Crossing are going to be the two most exciting ones to see on the financial report. Dave G. When can we expect full digital and physical sales for Animal Crossing? Dave, it's a great question. To piggyback off what we were just on, definitely at the very least, you will see it in Nintendo's financial briefing, which just got delayed. I can't remember the new date. Somebody could maybe drop that in the chat for you. I think it got pushed back to like the beginning of May, which is a bummer. I could be misremembering that, but I think it got delayed till May. It was originally going to be in April. So at the very latest, you'll hear it then. I suspect, though, you're going to hear it sooner than that. Actually, I think this is such a big launch that Nintendo is going to have their own PR. So, Dave, I would suspect in the next, what day of the week is it? Tomorrow's Friday. I think they'll want to give it a full week of sales maybe before they do it. So maybe next week, Dave. I wouldn't be shocked if you see some PR from Nintendo next week on Animal Crossing. Sean Torres. I wish Remedy would give Nintendo platforms a chance. Since their games did not sell well on Xbox and they're still supporting it, their games would function well with the Switch. Sean, I'm always in favor of seeing more third-party support on the Switch. One thing that makes it tough for Remedy, specifically their games, is they like to push tech pretty hard. Like Control has a ton of ray tracing options, tons and tons of high-end tech in their games. They really like doing that. Sean, I agree with you. I would love to see them support the Switch because I'm all for third-party support on Switch. Get more and more games on there. Remedy's a bit of a tough one just because they kind of like to push the boundaries on tech. They kind of like to push it. Their games, whenever they release, are usually very good-looking games. Control, looks awesome. So I just think the tech would be hard to get to run on Switch. I think that's really the real reason. I don't think it's one of those situations where Remedy has anything against the Switch or they think their games wouldn't sell. I don't think it's one of those kinds of things. I just think maybe their engine is pushing stuff a little too hard to get on there. Musad Muhammad. 2 questions. Do you think a Control sequel will be the AAA game for Epic? And what are your estimates, predictions for sales, total units for the top 3 selling games? Ooh, this is fun. Non-Call of Duty or sports game this year. Fun question, Muhammad. Let me tackle the first one first. So Control, I think, is the AAA game for Epic. That's what I think. So for those that have missed the announcement, Remedy Entertainment, they have 2 games that are going to be published for next-gen consoles and PC by Epic. Epic is going to be their publisher, Epic Games. Now, that could extend past these 2 games, in the future, but for now, the deal is these 2 games. I suspect they said one is a AAA game, like they just outright said that, and they said the other one is kind of a smaller title in the same franchise. I say quotes because I have a theory on this one. So the first one, the AAA game, I think that is Control 2. That's what I think. A lot of people are saying Alan Wake. Trust me, I would love for the AAA game to be Alan Wake. Anyone that knows me knows I am an Alan Wake fanboy. I don't like to use the fanboy term for myself for many things, but Alan Wake is one of them. That is one of my all-time favorite games. So I would literally do anything for that AAA game to be Alan Wake. But Control seems to have performed better for them than Alan Wake did overall. And Control also won like a ton of awards in a ton of different categories at a lot of different shows. So it also has that prestige. And then if you also remember, they already did a deal with Epic before on the Control franchise, right? It was exclusive to the Epic Game Store. So my hunch is that the AAA game is Control 2. That's my guess. Now, they said that they also have a smaller title. My theory, spoiler alert for anyone that has not played Control, this is not in regards to the ending of the game. This is just like a tease that's in there, but it is heavily implied, again, spoiler alert, Alan Wake is in the same universe as Control. They're set in the same world. I suspect maybe the smaller game that they're mentioning is Alan Wake. This is just literally fan guess theories, but they use the term same franchise. I think maybe they're using that loosely. One of the examples I gave is Split. That the film Split is a direct sequel to Unbreakable. Completely different. They only tie in at the very end. They're different franchises, but they're part of the same world. I wonder if that's what they're kind of getting at here with this 2-game strategy. It would be weird to me if there's 2 Control games. That one's weird to me, right? That's why I'm suspecting maybe one's Alan Wake, because it would seem weird to do Control 2 and a spin-off Control game that's like actually the same thing as Control. That would just seem weird. Control wasn't that big. It was a success, but it's not like it was like a Call of Duty where all of a sudden you need 10 games, coming out really quick around it. So that's my theory. Could be wrong on that. As for your other question, what do I think are the top 3 selling games that are not Call of Duty and they're not sports for this year? Total guesses here, folks, because we still have a long way to go. And actually, what makes this harder, Muhammad, is there's a lot of games that have not been announced yet that are coming out this year. All the launch games for next gen. Like, there's so many that haven't been announced. So that makes it harder. So I'm just going to stick with ones that are announced. All right. Is that fair? Do we all think that's fair? I'm going to say Animal Crossing. I'm going to say Animal Crossing New Horizons. The launch was just so crazy. It was so huge. It would have to have terrible legs to not make it. Again, if you're not counting sports games and you're not counting Call of Duty. So I'm going to put Animal Crossing in there. I think it's going to make that top 3. Cyberpunk 2077. I think that's pretty much a lock. Cyberpunk is going to be enormous. I'm predicting it to be, as long as it's good, to sell over 20 million copies. So I'm going to say Cyberpunk 2077. And out of what's announced, I'll say The Last of Us Part 2. I think those are probably the 3. And I know it sounds kind of surprising because 2 of those are exclusive games, right? Animal Crossing is an exclusive and The Last of Us is an exclusive, but they are both sequels to enormous games. Now, obviously, games like Call of Duty, would move them further down the chart. But since we're eliminating stuff like that, I think that's probably my 3 guesses. I think out of what we have announced, it's hard for me to think of something bigger than those 3. So Animal Crossing New Horizons, The Last of Us Part 2, and Cyberpunk 2077. Those are my 3 picks. All right. Wound Up Penguin. I've seen some people say that Animal Crossing New Horizons increased sales are only as a result of the pandemic. If that's the case, wouldn't we expect a similar increase for Doom Eternal, which released on the same day? Actually, to piggyback off that wound up, Doom actually broke the franchise record. So Doom actually did really, really well. Doom Eternal doubled the launch sales revenue, I should say, not sales, to be clear, revenue. It doubled the revenue of Doom 2016 and was the largest launch ever in the Doom franchise. So Doom saw a big increase. I don't think that's necessarily just the pandemic, though. And also, as I kind of think what you're getting at here, wound up, I don't think it's just the pandemic that is skyrocketing Animal Crossing sales. Now, it's definitely having an impact. I can tell you from data I'm seeing in the US, from data I'm seeing in the UK, from what's been released, from data we've seen in Japan, a lot of markets, gaming right now is booming during the pandemic. Steam concurrent users is breaking records. We've seen Xbox Live crash multiple times from what Microsoft themselves called unprecedented demand on their servers. So gaming right now is on fire. People are really stressed. People are depressed, anxiety. There's a lot going on in the world right now. What better escape is there than games? Now, I don't think you can only attribute that to Animal Crossing success. Animal Crossing also is a great game, and B, Switch itself is just skyrocketing their franchises. It's crazy. Basically, every single major first party entry for Nintendo games, if you look at Pokemon, if you look at Mario, if you look at Zelda, if you look at now Animal Crossing, there's so many examples I can go into. The Switch entries of those franchises are the highest selling ever for that IP. So it's crazy. It's crazy how strong Switch pushes software, or the fastest selling. If it hasn't hit the record yet, fastest selling. So yeah, wound up, I do think the pandemic's, as bizarre as this is going to sound, it's going to sound super bizarre. I think the pandemic is helping gaming, which sounds crazy, but I wouldn't attribute that only to the boost. The boost is also these games are good. Animal Crossing got great reviews. Doom got great reviews. People are excited for these games anyways. And I also think the combination of, people needing an escape also helps. Dave G. How do you think controversy about a game release affects sales? Ooh, good question. What is the threshold of the severity of controversy before it negatively impacts sales on a game? That's a great question, Dave, and really well worded too. It's interesting because we've seen examples both ways, right? We've seen examples where there's a lot of controversy about a game and it doesn't affect it at all. Prime example, it just happened. Pokemon Sword and Shield. Tons of controversy online about the Pokedex, the missing Pokemon. Just leading up to it, some people said they didn't really like the way necessarily the game looked, like hardcore fans. It had zero impact on sales. It set the record for fastest selling Pokemon game ever. So that is, or maybe if we don't say zero, maybe we say it was so small, it didn't even register. So, we've seen to where, maybe a lot of online negativity has no effect on sales. On the other side, we have seen prime examples where it did. Case in point, Star Wars Battlefront 2, where that backlash was so severe, even EA admitted after the game came out, they themselves admitted that the online negative backlash to that game did hurt the sales of it, from Battlefront 2 having tons of microtransactions that were kind of pay to win. You could basically get better players, better features in multiplayer if you paid. That gave you an advantage. So we've seen both cases. I think, Dave, the ones that really register, the ones that really, really negatively impact a game are kind of what I mentioned. Ones where people feel like they're maybe being cheated, or maybe they feel like, they're not getting, let's say like a company's taking advantage of them. I think those are the cases that the online really, really negative backlash where that actually does have an impact. I think some of the talking points can get, seem bigger than they are. just a certain feature about a game or a certain thing you don't like about it. I think sometimes those are a lot louder in online communities than they are for your average gamer. But the ones that really can hurt are, games where people feel like, hey, what am I doing? Why am I paying more than I feel like I should? Why does you breaking the game balance, things like that. 1 second, my phone's blowing up. Let me make sure this is nothing crazy. Give me just a second. All right, I'm going to, I'm good, but I'm going to have to wrap the chat in probably like 10 minutes. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut it short tonight, but we can go for like another 10 minutes and then I'm going to have to leave. So give me like 10 minutes. All right. Here we go. Sean Torres, Benji, while Switch had shortages in Japan, the console was up from last year. Yeah, definitely, Sean. And I expect the same for the US, even in March. Even with those severe shortages I talked about on the neon and the gray, I still think it's going to be up in March. Wound Up, hit that like button. Let's get more people in here. Thank you, Wound Up. I will never say no to the like. If you like doing these chats, make sure you do hit that like button. I hate giving this spiel. I feel like a salesman, but it's YouTube. The algorithm likes the likes. So I will never complain with hitting like on the video. Dave G, when Nintendo reports sales and earnings next week, what's the cutoff date for those? End of March, Dave. It goes through right the end of the month. So it's going to be right until basically March, 31-day month. So all the way through end of March, Dave. Aceville, good evening, Benji. Good to see you. Carnage Ghost, hello there, Benji. Do you think Warner Brothers will still have a conference in June, but digitally? Yes, I do. And how do you think publishers like Bethesda will announce reveal DLC for their games? I think it's going to be the same thing, for WB, for EA, for Ubisoft, for all of these big companies. With E3 being canceled, we've already had several announce already that they're going to still be having an online, conference. We've seen Microsoft announce that. We've seen Ubisoft announce that. I believe Square Enix has already announced that. So I suspect the same for WB. This was supposed to be a really big year for WB in terms of E3. Jason Schreier was the one who shared this over at Kotaku. Like always, I feel like I bring up Jason a lot, but Jason's always breaking the big news. This year at E3, their plan was to, spoiler alert for anyone that doesn't want to know what WB was going to announce, the new Batman game, the Harry Potter RPG that we've seen a little bit of leaked footage on. And finally, we were going to see Rocksteady's game. Rocksteady only released Arkham Knight this gen and then disappeared. Well, they also had Batman Arkham VR, but that's it. They just had that and then nothing the rest of the generation. So it was going to be huge. I mean, those are 3 huge games. So yeah, they're still going to have to get those announced, Carnage. And I think they'll do it in a digital presentation. Zero the Silent Hero. Do you think that with the increasingly prevalent relationship between Epic and PlayStation in terms of marketing, Fortnite, Godfall, that one of these new games will be announced at the PS5 reveal? Oh, that's an interesting question. So we know that they're not going to be exclusive because they are multi-platform. That was part of the announcement with this whole publishing deal, that these games are multi-platform. They're going to be on PC, and they said next-gen consoles, plural. So we know it's going to basically be on, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 as well as PC. But as for your question, could it be part of the PS5 reveal? Possible. I'm going to guess Zero the Silent Hero. Probably not from Remedy because I think it's too soon. Control just came out last year, and I don't think that they have if you're talking about the Remedy games, I don't think that they're going to be ready to announce Control 2 or whatever the AAA game is. I think that's still a little bit further away. Now, I won't be surprised if you see Remedy's next game announced in a PlayStation conference because, like you said, A, Epic and PlayStation seem to have a good relationship, and B, we also know that Remedy and Sony have a good relationship. They had some DLC deals and some marketing deals between PlayStation and Remedy on the PS4. So, we know there's a good relationship there. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Remedy's, next game get announced at a PlayStation event. But I think it's a little bit too soon for the PS5 reveal. I think Remedy's game's a little bit further off. The Arkham Knight Hero. Ahoy, pal. What's up? Do you think Sony will buy Bluepoint if their game sells well like Spider-Man? I think so. And also, do you think all third-party big announcements will be in a state of play or digital E3 conference? Yes, I do think so, Arkham Knight. So I suspect Sony's probably going to start showing games soon-ish. I'm going to guess, and this is a total guess, end of April or maybe early May, they start showing PS5 games. I know some people think that they're going to wait till after The Last of Us, which is a possibility, but I think waiting till June to announce big first-party games for PlayStation 5 is just way too late. So my guess, Arkham Knight, is probably late April, maybe May. You see PS5 like actual showcase, like of the actual games. In terms of Bluepoint, I suspect yes. We now know the one rumor that was floating around forever that Sony was going to buy Remedy. We now know that is definitely not true because Remedy is now partnered with Epic, and that's for 2 games. So this is like a long-term relationship. Games take a while to make. So for the next 3, 4, 5 years, I would say a company can still get purchased, during a publishing deal. It can be weird. They can still release the game under Epic. Even if Sony owns them. We've seen a case like that recently where Microsoft acquired Obsidian, right? Where Microsoft came in, they bought Obsidian, and the Outer Worlds wasn't out yet. So Obsidian still had to honor, all of the publishing deals that they had already signed. So even though that was a Microsoft studio, the Outer Worlds 1 couldn't be Xbox exclusive. So theoretically, Sony could still come in and acquire Remedy. Seems unlikely, though. If they just signed a big deal with Epic, I imagine, there was a decent amount of money involved with that. First of all, Remedy said that their next game is their most ambitious ever, which sounds like it's a big project. They describe it as AAA. And if you remember on Control, they didn't like to refer to it as like a big AAA game. They were like, we're trying to get a nice like AA, like with a really high quality, but like not a big giant budget. This one sounds like it's a really big budget, and we know Epic's paying for the whole thing. So that's a long-term deal, I think. In terms of Bluepoint, I suspect yes. Total guess, but I suspect if Bluepoint's game is huge and it's a giant success, that they very well may become a Sony first-party studio. Another one here from Arkham Knight Hero. Also, I've read that you expect a sequel to Doom Eternal. Yeah, because of the sales, but I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, true. Portal 2 sold like crazy and never got a sequel. I feel like Doom Eternal is the end of Doom. So there's a reason for that, Arkham Knight. In terms of Portal 2, I mean, that's Valve. Valve does all kinds of bizarre things that don't make sense, right? We still don't have another Left 4 Dead. We had to wait how many years to get another Half-Life, and it's still not Half-Life 3. By the way, Half-Life Alyx is mind-blowing. I've been playing it, and it is utterly mind-blowing, truly, in VR. But Valve doesn't play by the rules. The reason I think, there's a real strong reason why I think Doom is going to get a sequel, and that's because Bethesda really, besides Elder Scrolls and Fallout, Doom is now their 3rd biggest IP. If you look at Wolfenstein, if you look at Wolfenstein 2 and Youngblood, Wolfenstein 2 sales were just okay. Youngblood sales were outright poor. Evil Within 2, not a strong seller. Dishonored 2, not a huge seller. I could go on and on, honestly, out of Bethesda's recent games. Doom is far above all of their recent games besides Elder Scrolls and Fallout. So Bethesda needs hits. So that's why I suspect Doom is definitely getting a follow-up because Bethesda, they need games. If you look at games like Fallout and games like Elder Scrolls, they come out so far apart. We didn't have a single Elder Scrolls game besides, Elder Scrolls Online, like a single player Elder Scrolls, not one this whole generation. So Bethesda needs games, and they need games that can sell. So that's the main reason why I think definitely you're going to get another Doom. Carnage Ghost. I'm wondering, will some of this year's biggest games like Dying Light 2, Watch Dogs Legion, Cyberpunk be delayed because of the virus? We talked about this a little bit earlier, Carnage. I am expecting to see a couple delays. I don't think they're going to be huge, though. I don't think you're going to see those games pushed off till next year. Fisher King. Do you think that the Switch is going to have a rough year with the lack of any major first and third party announcements for Q3, Q4? It's a great question, actually, because Switch sales have been so on fire. But as you mentioned, the release slate does appear to be slowing. We just got announced Xenoblade Definitive Edition is going to be coming out in May. And so that's nice. That's a good pickup. I expect it's going to sell pretty well, but even if it sells really well, right? Like, let's say it does really, really, really good. Let's say it does better than Xenoblade 2. That's still not necessarily like a huge seller. You're looking at like the 2 million range for that game. Anything above that would be a gigantic success. So they don't have a lot of major announced games in the near-term future. So it could play an impact, Fisher King. I think Switch's back library is so strong, though, it's going to kind of carry it. Maybe you see sales dip a little bit during the during the summer, but I don't think it's going to be like, terrible. All right, I'm going to answer these last questions and we'll call it chat. That might be it, though. Feel like PS5 delay is all but confirmed. Carnage, that Sony is still adamant it's 2020. In fact, they just updated the PlayStation 5 website. Like, they just updated it, and they added coming holiday 2020. So they're still dead set on it. All right, everyone. Thanks for the chat. Sorry, I know this was a brief one. I know it was impromptu. My phone's going off. I actually have something I got to take care of. So I am going to bounce, everyone. Thanks for the quick chat. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I will see you all again soon. We'll do another chat probably not this weekend, so probably next week. Otherwise, I will see y'all on Twitter. Thanks for joining in, everyone. See you next time. Peace.